Hello and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile, and this is the show where I get to have conversations with people in sports and business, see everything that happens in between. Today, I have Kevin Spillman. He's the Director of Marketing and Promotions for the US Naval Academy, formerly with the University of Connecticut and the University of Maryland. Kevin, how you doing today, man?
Good, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure is all mine. I have not had a director of marketing from a U.S. Naval Academy or any of the academies, so really
There we
appreciate you
go.
coming on. Appreciate your service and what you do, and helping our boys and
Absolutely.
girls out there over there. They need all the help they can get, so
Oh
we
yeah.
appreciate you, man.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I'm very excited to get to talk to you about this. This is going to be a lot of fun. You've had a lot of time in the collegiate space,
hmm
especially on the marketing side, and it seems like that's 100% the direction you're going. So I'm excited for you there. But the first question, Kevin, I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Well, as I'm sure probably everybody says, grew up playing sports my entire life, and I pretty quickly realized in high school that I didn't have a chance of going pro or really having much of a collegiate career. So, I kind of was like, what's the next best thing, and started to dig my teeth a little bit into, hey, there's this whole industry, behind the scenes that make pro sports run. And a lot of the people that I talk to, when I tell them what I do, that they have no idea even what goes into preparing a stadium for a game day, or all the marketing that goes on, operations, all the team stuff. So once I kind of figured out about that world a little bit, it's like, hey, this is kind of the next best thing, I guess, to stay involved. And the other piece I would say, when I got to University of Maryland as a student, that's where I really fell in love with college sports. The first home football game my freshman year, it was like the first real experience of tailgating all day. You're there with your whole school. We were playing Miami. The whole place was packed. It was actually raining that game, but it was like one of the best experiences I've ever had at a sporting event. And I was like, this is awesome. And I fell in love with Maryland. So, I supported almost all the teams. And that's kind of how I fell in love with it. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for somebody in collegiate marketing or working in collegiate athletics, at least for me, and a lot of the people I work with too, is it's really all about the athletes, that and the university itself. So, I kind of view marketing as not just the athletic department, but also marketing for the university as a whole. So, there's plenty of research out there. After a team wins the national championship, applications will skyrocket to that
Yep.
school, donations will skyrocket to that school. So, and when alumni are coming back, they're coming back to a football game or a basketball game. There are other events and things that happen. Homecoming week, there's a lot of things on the academic side, but the real way a lot of alumni and donors and fans stay engaged is through sports. So what we're doing isn't just marketing for the teams themselves, but as the university as a whole, and that's partly why doing it for Navy, it means so much more, even more so than, when I was doing it as a student at Maryland for my own alma mater, and then up at UConn, where I got my master's degree from it. It means a little bit more here. But then above and beyond all that, just, the athletes themselves, making sure they have the best experience possible while they're at school is something that I didn't really think about when I first got into the industry, but the last couple ADs that I've worked for and some of the administrators I've had a chance to get to know, they've kind of drilled down, that will kind of drive you. If you're always thinking about how can I make this better for the athletes and how can I make their experience better, ultimately, you're going to do a lot better job marketing, and you're gonna be able to be a little bit more passionate about it, and that's kind of driven me, through the various teams that I've worked with, because I've worked with some teams that don't get a lot of traction. So field hockeys and the volleyballs of the world, unfortunately, obviously don't get at most schools, don't get a lot of the attention, but that just drives me a little bit harder to, hey, let's try to make it the best experience a volleyball players ever had at UConn or field hockey or whatever. So
I love it. I love
so
it, man.
that's kind of, I mean, and I just think sports is a great catalyst for building leaders. Obviously, it's a main part of the Naval Academy's mission. There are three tiers. One of the tiers is the athletics, and that all goes down to the leadership aspect and the teamwork and things like that. So, I just love it.
Yeah,
It's
I
for
can
the
tell.
for the
You're
love of
good.
sports, and I just love it.
You're
So,
good, man. I love it, and
yeah,
I'm excited to talk a little bit more about Navy in a second, especially
yep,
like that. You talk about the athletes at Navy, and the one thing that separates them from pretty much every other school in Division I, at least, is most of these dudes know they're not going professional. Like
Right.
even the football team, they know. I mean, we've seen we saw Malcolm Perry, right, this
Hmm.
past year. He was from Army, right? He was at Army, if I'm not mistaken. Was he
No, he was
Navy?
he was
He was
Navy.
Navy.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
Navy. Yep.
Keenan Reynolds as well, right?
Yep.
He got drafted, which was pretty cool. So we've seen a
Yep.
couple of these guys, but it's almost like a lock that very, very few of them will
Hmm.
go professional. We understand the restrictions for the offensive and defensive line. That's why we get to play the triple
Hmm.
option, which is like my favorite offense to watch because we don't really get to watch it anymore. So
Yep.
we'll get to that in a little bit, especially kind of from that perspective of really
Sure.
making sure these athletes have a good time because this is essentially it for them. So
Right.
let's make sure that they're having a good time at a big program such as
Right.
Navy or the academies, which I think is great. But you kind of went over it already, but like the college athletic experience of it. I mean, did you know before Maryland that this is something that you wanted to do, or was it, you kind of just started not putzing around a little bit, but you're like, this sounds like fun. Let me try it out. And then you just kind of fell in deeper in love with this whole college athletic experience, understanding, what it means for the students in the school and the alumni and the parents, and then also the athletes on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I was a big pro sports guy before I went to Maryland. I'm originally from New England, and obviously, once the farther southern you go, I think the more ingrained college athletics are in the just the overall community. Unfortunately, but so I was just a big pro sports guy, and then, like I said, when I got to Maryland, the first couple events that I went to were absolutely amazing. When I was there, at least, and still a little bit to this day, basketball is kind of driving a lot of the interest there. And so getting into basketball was I was never really a basketball guy, but totally got into basketball. I was there, the games and everything, and being part of that energy and atmosphere was absolutely incredible. But yeah, I mean, I love and I've had a couple internships in pro sports, but it's the traditions and the pageantry and all that kind of stuff is what I love. Like I was the kid, I obviously would go to tailgates and stuff, but I was in there early watching the band show on the field. Loved the stuff during halftime. The team intro stuff always, chills running down your spine. All that kind of stuff was just amazing, and I just wanted to be part of that. And you really, I mean, you get some of that in the pros, but it's so different in college athletics, in my opinion. And some of the places I've been, Maryland has really great traditions. UConn, especially obviously on the basketball front, is unlike anything I've ever seen. The women's basketball, the first game I went there, I'm like, I can't even believe this exists.
That's awesome.
And then obviously, at Navy, I had the opportunity to go to one home football game when I got down there in the fall, and the march on of the brigade, the flyover, the guys parachuting in, it's just like, it's unreal. And you don't really get that anywhere else. So yeah, that's kind of, I just wanted to never not be a part of that. And so this was the best way to stay involved for sure. So
yeah, and it is so weird. I'm from up here in the Northeast as well, a little
mhm.
outside of right between New York and Philly, and it's just weird that there's like the college athletic scene for I don't know whatever reason just did not figure it out up here
Yeah,
in the Northeast. But yeah, once you start going south, you start hitting Virginia and obviously the Carolinas and everything. Obviously, it's huge. You go out into the Midwest. I mean, Cornhusker Red, the entire state of
right.
Nebraska literally shuts down on Saturdays so people can
Yeah,
watch those 12 games a year. And unfortunately, they've been losing a lot recently.
right.
But it's just, I don't know why. I kind of just don't understand it. You can't blame it on the cold because, again, you got the Midwest
Right.
and they love football too. So I
Right.
never really understand it. I mean, I went to Rutgers, birthplace of college football. So
Yeah.
I will die on that hill. I literally live 20 minutes from Princeton University. So same thing,
Uh-huh.
Rutgers versus Princeton, man. First college football game ever, which
Yeah,
is pretty funny. So,
absolutely.
but yeah, it's just weird. And, so I grew up being a bigger professional sports fan, but the older I
Hmm.
got, the more I fell in love with the pageantry, the tradition, the fact that, hey, you want to go to Ann Arbor? Yeah, let's fit 110,000 people in
Yeah.
here every single weekend. You want to go to Happy Valley? Here's another 120,000 people. Like the statistic that got it for me was I think, Happy Valley on home games for Penn State becomes the third largest city in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, which is just like a mind-blowing fact. And maybe
Yeah.
I'm off by one or two, whatever. You got Pittsburgh, you got Philly. What else
Yeah.
is there in PA
Right.
that's that big? So it's just crazy to me that something like that exists, and that's how I kind of fell in love with it. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge college, just all around athletics fan. I watch the NCAA softball. I love that tournament.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we didn't get it this past year,
Yep.
which stinks, but it is just so much fun watching these kids go out there and throw it on the line. And from then your perspective, so you come in here, you start doing your thing, you start to learn about this entire, this is an industry within an industry, right? There's a sports business industry, and then you can kind of shrink it down and go into the college athletic space. It's a lot different, obviously,
Mhm.
for many different reasons, as we've been talking about. But what exactly does a director of marketing do at one of these collegiate programs? Again, you've been at Maryland, where you had spent some time there. You were assistant
Mhm.
director of marketing over in
Yep.
UConn, and you are now the head director of marketing here at the US Naval Academy. What exactly does a director of marketing do at one of these schools?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can give you a laundry list of like a million different things that we're involved with. I mean,
Give me the high level.
yeah. No, I'm
Yeah,
not.
give me
I
the
won't
high
go into that.
level.
But the way I kind of like to say it is kind of twofold. The way I like to, when a family member asks me what I do, it's always a tough question to answer because there's so many things that go into it. But the simplest way to say is the one half of it is really a lot of the external communication. So your advertising, we're trying to drive ticket sales. How are we getting engaged with the community? Looking at what different demographics can we target. So obviously we have our season ticket holder base, but how can we interact and engage with students? What are we doing with our local youth communities and youth teams? Are there some other larger groups out there that we're not engaging with? The whole demographic spectrum. What is the branding of the athletic department and each of the individual teams look like? And I think the involvement from the marketing department in some of these things is different depending on where you go. Depending on, at UConn we had a social media director that handled a lot of that stuff. He fell under the marketing department ish. He was kind of his own, but he fell under our umbrella. Other places, Maryland had a graphic designer. We just actually got one up at UConn before I left. Whereas at Navy, we don't necessarily have a social media director. So a lot of that responsibility falls more on the marketing department and a little bit more on communications and stuff like that. But that external driving ticket sales, encouraging people to attend our home games, just getting Navy or wherever you're working out in the community and making sure people are engaging with it and staying top of mind is really important. The other piece of that, so number two would be the in-game experience. So once we finally get someone to show up to our home games, how do we make sure that they have an incredible time there, no matter what happens on the field or on the court? It's always tough. You never know how the season's going to go, but we always try to control the things that we can control. So make sure that the music is exactly the right kind of music and people love it. Our promos, make sure the promos are exactly what people are looking for. Giveaway items, what kind of the contesting games that we're doing on the court, the theme nights, all that kind of stuff. And I would say too, a lot of the places I've worked, the supervisors that I've worked for have also been interested in just finding out more about our fan base. And that's been kind of important for me is don't just assume what people want, actually do the research. So especially up at UConn, I was doing a lot of research into, season ticket holder surveys, meeting with our students in person and doing focus groups and things like that. Because you might assume, one of the crazy things up at UConn that we found out, I think we kind of knew. So we were assuming like, hey, we think Wi-Fi is a really important piece of the game day experience. And a lot of the people outside of our department that we talked to was like, well, why would that matter? They're there to watch the game. That shouldn't matter. They're not on their phones or whatever. Well, we talked to the fans and they're like, the service sucks in your arenas and I want to be on my phone. Obviously, people are just, always on their phones now. And so we were able to figure out like, hey, that's actually a big priority. And that kind of got moved up in the list of projects. And I believe last season they at one of the arenas were able to get new Wi-Fi, and fans loved it. And looking at students, initially I thought I kind of a year or two out of college knew what students wanted, but even a couple of years out, things change. So getting the focus groups together to figure out what kind of giveaway items do you like, and we're showing them, hey, here's all the stuff that we did last year that we thought you guys would like, and they're like, no. And here's the two that we like. They're like, we just want free food and t-shirts. It's like, all right, if that's what you want, we won't even worry about getting any other stuff.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. The more t-shirt cannons, the better. Everyone loves a good t-shirt cannon, man. Who doesn't, right?
I know. Yeah. We had we actually got a 6 foot tall, like multiple barrel Gatling gun thing at UConn, which is just, and it took like 2 50-pound CO2 canisters. I mean, and these are some of the things like, we get to do some of the fun stuff like that, which I do really enjoy. So obviously there's the serious side of, we have to meet revenue goals. We have to meet season ticket holder goals. We have to build those relationships. But then we also have that fun side of like, how can we make throwback night awesome? Or how can we get, Star Wars actors in here for Star Wars night? Or let's make our t-shirt tosses the best ever. Like one of the promos I did at a women's basketball game up there was the world record t-shirt toss. Now it costs like 10 grand to get Guinness to come out. So it wasn't officially official, but we in like 1-2 minute timeout, we threw out 1,000 t-shirts into the crowd. So we had like 50 people on the court, and there were a bunch in the upper concourse, and it was just absolute madness during the TV timeout. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And so that's kind of the really fun aspect, and we really get to stay creative on that side of it. But there obviously is the business side, which is really serious. So I kind of like that the two aspects of it there, where we are doing serious things. We drive revenue. We're a revenue producing department, but we get to have all this fun while we're doing it. So that's again like why I love marketing, and I can't ever see myself doing anything else. So
free food and t-shirts, man. That's
all man. That's all they want.
Like, it's as easy as that. You try way too hard sometimes. You think of all these fun, creative, like people love this. Like, no, honestly, free food and t-shirts. That's all I want. And it's funny. Yeah, I respect it. It's the literal exact thing I would say. I've been removed from college for about 6 years now, but still all I want. Give me more free food and t-shirts. I'll be happy. And so with that, I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun. And again, I always enjoy talking to people who really, really enjoy what they do. And it's very clear through your voice and hearing what you do and how you say it, how much fun you do have. And I want to talk a little bit about, so at UConn, before we get to the Navy, which I think will be a really interesting kind of juxtaposition and contrast conversation, at UConn, which is, I mean, pretty well known as a basketball school. I mean, we had Jim Calhoun there for however long, dude, what he did, however many titles. You had Ollie come in for hot minute. He won a title when he was there. And then obviously you have Gino Auriemma, who is just, the greatest women's college basketball coach of all time. I always love watching UConn play because it's just so much fun. They're just so freaking good. In a school like that, I mean, in pretty much 99% of schools, especially Division I, football is going to rule everything. UConn's football team, and you're not there anymore, so I don't feel bad saying this, is terrible. And they're very, very bad. And they've been bad for a while. And I think there was that one time they went to the Fiesta Bowl in like 2008, something like that. Some weird, like
2011.
Okay, that's what it was. It was weird. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. It's okay. But like when you're at a school like that, I still assume, even with basketball being as big as it is, and please tell me if I'm wrong, football still drives the most revenue. So how do you kind of like, as a person, as a fan, understanding like we all know the football team's bad, but we really have to market the hell out of it because that's where we're going to, pack a stadium every weekend and we're going to get all this, all the like, how do you kind of fight that internal battle, with yourselves and then also with kind of your group? Obviously you're not fighting, but like, it's kind of like, we really want to talk about basketball because they're good, but we also really have to talk about football because that's where all that revenue that you were talking about comes from.
So I won't necessarily get into like specifics of revenue numbers.
No.
Yeah, but
generalities.
But so during my time there, even at the worst that UConn football was as far as season ticket holder wise and wins and revenue and stuff, they were still basically, if they weren't making the most money, they were just slightly behind men's basketball. And not to say men's basketball was necessarily operating at the highest clip that they could have been, because they had a couple down years as well. But they still weren't necessarily performing as bad as the football team was. So you're 100% right. Football still drives a lot of that. I will say, a lot, and I do like to defend UConn a little bit just because I work there, and I still get some heat from it from some of the people down here at Navy, but they do have not a long history of football, but it is a rich tradition in the last 20 years, especially within the state. And that's the one thing.
I'm sorry, rich tradition in 20 years. I like that. You're really jumping through some hoops.
I
appreciate it. I respect it. Keep going. I just wanted to point that out for everyone.
In case we have any UConn folks listening, but no, I mean they rose from 1AA all the way up to the Fiesta Bowl, and then obviously Etzel left and stuff like that. But I still think, I mean, they still had a pretty loyal fan base, even before I left. Obviously it was starting to dwindle down to the loyal of the loyal, but the tailgating there is great. The stadium off campus is tough for kids, but But yeah, so as far as like where our priorities lied, you know, not talking about any of the other like fall
Yeah.
sports and stuff like that. I mean, hockey was kind of new, and we put some effort into that. But I would still say it was almost split three ways between football, men's basketball, women's basketball, especially over the summer heading into August. We were pouring a lot of energy. Obviously, you have to pour a lot of energy into football, trying to maximize as many season ticket sales as possible. I would say over the last few years, we focused a little bit more on driving singles, driving groups, things like that, really. And I think like the one tagline we had one year was tailgating football fun, and we really tried to make it all about more the game day experience of the tailgating. You get to be outside, you know, during the fall where it's, you know, nice out. You can tailgate with your friends, stuff like that. Obviously not focusing on the football aspect of it. So I would say we really, over the first like month and a half, 2 months into the season, we're still pouring a lot of effort into football. The first couple of games, we were really hitting students hard to try to get as many of them out, so they'll have fun. It did get tougher as the season went on. So obviously we don't know what's going to happen. They could be really good. So we had to be prepared for that. But, you know, as the season went on, the stuff we were trying to do with students just wasn't working. We asked them, you know, why aren't you coming out? We're giving you free food at the tailgates. We're doing all these giveaways. They're like, that we will come out when they win, but they're just not winning, and we don't even feel like there's a chance of them winning. So we started to pull back some of the student promotions as the season went on, and obviously we were still trying to drive ticket sales, but you know, as the season went on and it wasn't going necessarily the way that we wanted it to go, we would start to shift a little bit more into the basketball realm. Not to say that but all three of those sports are we're thinking about them all year long.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So the second football season's over. We're already thinking about renewals for season tickets. What kind of promotions worked, didn't work from last year, and same deal with basketball. So even during football season, we're always keeping that top of mind. But yeah, I mean, I would say as far as our effort and time and money, it was split almost three ways.
Yeah. And it's an interesting position too, right? Because there's only so many, you know, probably wrongly, but there's only so many women's teams that are going to garner as much attention as the UConn women's basketball team does. I mean, that's like a legitimate, you could throw that on ESPN and they'll get ratings because we know how incredible that team's going to be. They're loaded with talent. Obviously, they have one of the best coaches of all time, if not the best coach of all time. It is just insane. So they're going to drive ratings. That's going to be a lot of fun. So it's just like such an interesting, you know, especially your time there. It's, you know, football, which is going to drive the most revenue, wasn't so great. And of course, kind of using them as a punching bag here, it's incredible to go from Division I AA up to the Fiesta Bowl in only a few short years. It's incredible. Right. I don't care what anybody says, but, you know, it's just kind of like how you're probably never going to fall into another position like this. And it's really the only thing, you know, obviously being at Navy for a few months now, but, you know, 4 of these months have kind of just been thrown up into the air. Or like, it's just such a cool position that you were put in that no one else can really say unless they were at UConn, which is like, hey, we had to devote a lot of time to all 3 of these, knowing 2 were going to be really good. 1 was immaculate. And then this other one, like, we're just doing anything we can. And it's just really, do you like reflect on that ever at all? Because I think like, you're never going to find that anywhere else in college sports, really.
Yeah, I mean, the first women's basketball game I went to up there, they would always play a couple exhibition games a year. So it was against a D2 or D3 team out of I think Lubbock Christian out of Lubbock, Texas. Anyway, it was in our 16,000 seat arena, and there was like 8,000 people that showed up for this exhibition game. And I'm like, at Maryland, this would have been like one of the highest attended games of the year, and this was just for an exhibition. So initially, just completely blown away with the support they have there. And the other thing is like, maybe not so much in the last couple of years, they'll lose like 1 or 2 games a year, which is crazy to think about. But when I first got there, they were still in the 111 straight wins, 4 straight national title era, and people were still packing the place to the gills, staying pretty much till the end of the game. Like you'd have, you know, the old ladies on the sideline, like yelling at missed block calls at the refs while we're up 50 in the fourth quarter. I'm like, we just all want to get out of here now. But they love it. They love it. And they're completely rabid. But yeah, I mean, being in some of the meetings and things when we're talking about planning, it was really refreshing, actually. I guess that's the way to put it, of a women's team getting that kind of support from the administration level and that much attention. Obviously, they completely warrant it with the amount of success they have and the amount of revenue. But it was really, really refreshing to me. And it was really nice to see that people cared. And I would also say, in just the fan base in general, Even the men's basketball fans, they were in tune with what was going on with women's basketball. And, once they were making their tournament runs and everything, like everyone was tuned into it, which was really awesome. The student support was incredible. Gino schedules really aggressively. So we'd have like a Notre Dame and a South Carolina and a Louisville and some of these bigger name teams on the schedule each year. So they'd get a few sellouts where we'd have 2,000 or 3,000 students out. Not to mention the rest of the crowd obviously was packing in every night. But that was also really, really awesome to see because, my time at Maryland, it was always tough. You'd ask a kid like, hey, they had a really solid women's team, but they were like, I can't see myself out of women's basketball. Yeah. But it's just because it's UConn that the kids there really enjoyed it. Obviously with the history and stuff there, it was easy to help convince them to come on out. So I would say it's really refreshing. And I would also say like the women's basketball team too, at least internally, I think they did a good job of advocating for the rest of the women's teams on campus. So a lot of times when we had some milestones, like, a coach would reach, a certain milestone win number, or we would be celebrating like a field hockey national championship, more than happy to have those teams come on out like during halftime to recognize that or whatever. Awesome. Or we'd have a special video piece, or, they're always had their eye on social media, making sure that we were, being equitable for who we were representing on our main social media accounts, which I thought was really, really awesome. And, their staff was incredible to work with. So absolutely incredible experience and something I'll never forget for sure. And you're right. You don't get that anywhere else, really.
It's so cool, man. So glad you got to experience that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It is just so darn cool. And then transitioning to the Naval Academy, one thing I do want to start out with, and we kind of spoke about it for a minute before, is, you were talking about you want this to be the best experience for the student athletes. I think that's one of the most important things. And then we were talking a little bit about it as well. Most of these athletes are not going pro. Like most of them, that they kind of know that when they sign up. There's the very few, as Malcolm Perry, Keenan Reynolds, that, hey, if you're going to put up that many yards and that many touchdowns, we're at least going to give you a look in the NFL. Where is Malcolm Perry right now? I think he got drafted by like the Dolphins, right?
Yeah, he got drafted by the Dolphins. They moved him, I believe, to running back or wide receiver. I want to say running back. Probably, but yeah, and I think he actually got injured or came down with COVID, one of the two. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, obviously gearing up for the season, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. He was fun. Again, Keenan Reynolds, I know he got drafted by the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty darn cool. So a lot of fun stuff there. So with that in mind, if you don't mind giving us a couple minutes on just the comparison and contrastion, again, going from a major school like UConn, knowing most of those dudes, all of those girls pretty much are getting drafted in some capacity on the basketball team specifically, and definitely some people and some guys on the football team, to now over here where it is a legitimate, I'm using my words very, very precisely, it's a legitimate student athlete that they know there is really nothing else after this. So how is that different from your role and that marketing perspective, and also from that perspective of making sure those student athletes do have the best experience they can?
Yeah, I would just say to start off with just from my own passion, and like I mentioned before, that student athlete experience means a lot to me, and the university itself means a lot to me. So working here, it's almost easier, or it feels a little bit less like work even, doing it for people like this and a university like this. So I've always had a high respect for our military, and these kids are really foregoing a normal college experience to serve our country. The new rule now, I don't know if you've heard, but they are allowed to to postpone their service if they have the opportunity to, go to a draft or go pro or whatever. So I think Malcolm was one of the first actually to take advantage of that. So he's deferring his active service for a few years. But yeah, prior, if they were good enough to go pro, like, a Roger Staubach or a David Robinson or even a Keenan Reynolds, they would have to do, I think it was at least 2 years in the reserves, 2 years active, and then they can move to the reserves while competing professionally. But yeah, I haven't had a ton of experience interacting with all the athletes there, but the few interactions that I've had with them, in the hallways or when we're doing some of our marketing videos or shoots or whatever, or even just talking to them on the sideline or whatever, definitely more humble individuals. And not to say, I mean, the athletes that I worked with at UConn amazing, but it's even more about the team. It's not a lot of the stuff they talk about. It's just so crazy to hear the stories of like the stuff they're doing during the summer and the training. And this is the first time of me kind of experiencing plebe summer being a thing, which is kind of like their 6-week boot camp. But just hearing the stories coming out of that, and I've been on the yard a couple times over the last few weeks, and seeing the things that they're doing and being exposed to, it's just incredible. And the whole COVID situation, like a lot of these other athletes have a chance to do a 5th year or whatever, or even a 6th year with a medical red shirt and all that kind of stuff. But they have 4 years to be here, and that's it. And so if a season doesn't happen, tough luck. So that's why, I'm pulling even harder for this to happen. And the difference is, I mean, I guess internally too, in our department, I feel like everybody really cares a lot about every single one of our sports. Not to say they did at other places, but I really feel like, the fan base and everybody is really geared into the swimming and diving team and how's squash doing this year, rifle or whatever, just above and beyond football. There's a lot of other interest in what's going on and how the athletes are doing and things like that, which I think is great. The other thing too is like we get to play Army in every single sport basically. And those games are just on another level. I'm pretty sure they could play Army Navy tic-tac-toe and you'd have 1,000 people show up and it'd be aired on ESPN2 or something. It's like the how rabid it gets around that. The midshipmen are all all over those games and everything. It's like really, really awesome to be a part of. And obviously they always talk about how they're enemies on the field for the one day and then they're on the same team. And I really think that rings true. I mean, just seeing the whole, at the end of the Army Navy game, how you go over and you sing the two teams' alma maters and everyone stands at attention for that and gives it respect, I think is really awesome. So, I mean, from my perspective, it makes my job a lot easier. As far as what we're doing, a lot of the things are a little bit similar, and what we're trying to do is make the fan experience the greatest. I would say the way we're marketing it is obviously at UConn, especially in the basketball side, we're talking a lot about the success of the program and the things like that. Whereas here, we're really focusing on these are our future military leaders. We're going to have a really good time at these games. Here's the traditions. Here's the pageantry. So that piece of it's a little bit different. And obviously, if some teams are having really awesome seasons, we do have a chance to focus on that. But it's almost less of an emphasis on the athletic success and more of just what being a midshipman at the Naval Academy means. And so in a sense, I mean, it almost makes my job a little bit easier where, the brand, everybody knows this brand. Nobody doesn't know what the Navy is. So it does make my job a little bit easier like that. I think we instantly get interest from fans and, corporate entities when we go out to them. We have instant, name and brand recognition. So just really happy to be a part of it.
I'm sure that definitely helps a little bit with those sponsorship sales.
Absolutely.
Sure. But in terms of let's talk about the Army Navy game a little bit. So you've been at the Naval Academy since about November. So this is only a month and change later is the Army Navy game. Hopefully, again, we're all crossing our fingers for this year. And going back to tic-tac-toe, if they play the triple option in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to watch it. So they can figure that out in tic-tac-toe. But
there you go.
What was that like? I mean, this is such a unique game because there are no other Division I football games on that weekend. There's the conference championships, and the next weekend is only the Army Navy game. It's in Philly, or at least it has been the last however many years. We get it aired, and everybody loves it. There's been some incredibly tight games recently. There's been some kind of not so tight games recently, but with that, I mean, what was the record? How many did Navy win in a row for that?
14 in a row, until through 2015. Then Army got the last 3, and then Navy just won last year. So
which was been a lot of fun to watch. But like with that, like how intense is the marketing around that? Again, knowing like even if UConn is in the the women's college basketball championship game or the men's college basketball championship game, that's one thing. But the Army Navy game, it's like a whole. Not quite another level, but it's definitely like horizontal. It is adjacent to what the heck's going on because it's the only football game on, the only college football game on. Everyone respects the hell out of it, as we've been talking about. What is it like going about trying to market that? And I guess not try and market it, but what were you doing there to really try and get the word out, I guess, more, or really just get more people involved in what's going on? Oh, no. Oh, I got you. You're back. Nope.
Uh-oh.
No, I got you.
You
Can
still
hear
got me?
A little bit. Did you hear my question? Oh, you're coming back. All right. Got to check that Wi-Fi.
Oh, you got me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. You're
Don't know
good.
what happened there. Let me.
And internet, man, it is what it is. That's what happens. Did you hear my question? I just want to make sure that.
Yeah. So just go into the marketing and kind of the behind the scenes of the game essentially. And
Yeah. Yep.
so yeah, I would say I was involved with a lot of big games at UConn, but this is by far the biggest event I've ever had even a little bit of a hand in. So again, year-long process. So the second that game ended, everyone was already kind of gearing up to it for the next year. So from a marketing side, it's a little interesting where we kind of trade off each year. So last year, Navy being the home team, we kind of handled the marketing aspect of it. And so this year, it'll be Army's. They'll be kind of leading the marketing aspect of it. And I would say marketing more of like some of the in-game things. As far as like the overall marketing and ticket sales, obviously that's driven by both Army and Navy. We've been selling tickets for this for a long time. It's not part of our season ticket package, obviously, but again, that starts pretty much right away. The corporate sales side of it, which is a huge piece. Obviously, we drive a ton of revenue that way. That is all on the Navy side, and that's kind of where we had a lot of our involvement with. A lot of the stuff happening outside of the stadium, so the Fan Fest area, we're kind of helping our corporate sales office capture everything that's happening and make sure that everything that needs to happen for our sponsors and all the activations is happening. My supervisor is the one who's directing the march on of the brigade and the Corps of Cadets. They're making sure all the activations and everything that's happening on the field, all the VIPs that need to be recognized, all that kind of stuff happens. She's on headset with me up in the booth with the video production staff in the stadium, making sure that, the video board things that need to be running at the correct time are running at the correct time. We're lining up the flyover with the PA read. So that's kind of a lot of the stuff that kind of similar to what we're doing for a normal game, but just at a completely different level. As far as the experience there, I mean, it's just like a normal Navy home game, but just on steroids with everything happening. So the prisoner exchange, the tailgating outside is incredible. Obviously, you have game day out there, which is really awesome as well. The march on of both brigades is amazing. You have the helicopters come over for Army. You have the Blue Angels come over for Navy. I forget if we had parachuters in last year. I'm sure they did. The president was there last year, which I know the president usually attends, which is just another whole level of security, and that's a whole huge deal as well. But yeah, just I didn't have obviously a ton of a month out. Pretty much everything was kind of already set. But there is a lot that goes into crafting what the game day itself looks like as far as the in-game video board and everything. So that falls on the whatever academy is hosting that year. So my boss last year, she crafted the in-game script. What was happening on the video board. They rely on the Eagles staff to make that kind of happen, but she's kind of the mastermind behind that for the game, and then we're just kind of assisting with everything else going on. But yeah, the biggest event I've ever been a part of. I've heard that it's better than the Super Bowl. Never been to the Super Bowl, but it was pretty awesome. And again, as a guy who's really big in the traditions and the pageantry and things like that, it doesn't get bigger than this, in my opinion. And again, it's also like it's awesome that no matter how the seasons are going, it really doesn't matter. Both teams could be 0 for on the season, and this is the Super Bowl for them, which is really special. And you always get to end the year with it, no matter what. It's almost like you're almost going to a bowl game every single year in a sense, which is awesome. But yeah, incredible experience. I recommend if anybody hasn't gone to it. I don't know about this season with fan restrictions, but get out to it. It's really awesome. Like you mentioned, it's been in Philly the last couple of years. I think next year it might be moving, and it's been in Baltimore a few times. I think they did on the West Coast one time. But the one interesting thing that I did hear is part of the reason it hasn't been on the West Coast a lot is whatever city hosts it actually has to pay and house both the brigade and midshipmen, all 4,500 of them, and the Corps cadets, which is obviously flying them is a lot more expensive than just busing them up to Philly or Baltimore or wherever. So that'll probably stay on the East Coast, I think, for the most part. But definitely get out to it if you haven't been. To anybody listening.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's always on my calendar. I mean, I love college football so much. And as you said, when it comes to tradition, when it comes to the pageantry, and just as you said, like, it doesn't matter. I don't care which one is 3-9, and I don't
Hmm.
care if the other one's 9-3. I'm gonna watch that game. It's gonna be so much fun. And sometimes they get a little out of hand, but most of the time, even if the records aren't, even that 14-year run, I remember a couple of those games being pretty darn close. So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. And then
They're
especially
always
the one
competitive. You're right. Yeah.
exactly, and
Yeah.
it's that extra layer that you're at least coming to watch a good game for a
Right.
little while. And it's a weird one too. Again, I'm never gonna stop bringing it up. I love that triple option,
Hmm.
man. And so with that, I mean, as you brought up, and we kind of understand, there's it's a weird spot that we're in right now, right? Where I just checked my phone. I wanted to see if we were going to get to break any news live on air, but I don't think we will be able to. It looks like the Big Ten and I think it was the Pac-12 were
Hmm.
about to cancel their seasons.
Hmm.
Hasn't It's been said that they did, but they have not come out and said
Yeah.
anything yet. So we'll see. And now we're looking at potentially conference realignment for a year, and it's going to get weird. It's going to get wacky. I mean, if they can
Yeah.
do it in a safe way, I'm all for it. But I don't know if they can, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
From your perspective as the marketing director and understanding again everything we just went through with just that one game. And as you know, football, as we spoke about, even with that UConn, when maybe it's not the number one sport, it's actually kind of towards the bottom. It's going to drive the most revenue.
Yeah.
As a director of marketing, how are you preparing for this very, very unknown time that's coming up? So it's one thing that we lost a lot of those spring sports. It sucks, man. It
Hmm.
sucks. March Madness, it's like my favorite thing in the entire world. We missed that, unfortunately.
Right.
Missed a lot of these other things. We didn't get softball. We didn't get a lot of those other things. What are you doing? Like what have you done in the last few months? And what are you going to be doing? Or how are you at least preparing for, all the different options and opportunities?
Yeah. So I would say to start. So right as this initially happened, obviously right in the middle of a few seasons, and
Mhm.
lacrosse is a huge time for us.
Yeah.
Both of our men's and women's teams are very good. Play at the football stadium, and so we lot like we're talking about how to keep our fan base engaged. Was initially like we can't lose everybody right now. So normally we'd have 2 months of content with between games and everything else going on, and now we don't have access to the players. We're not in the office. There's no games happening. So initially, and what I really liked, I hope we continue to do this, but initially we sat down as a group, is like, let's come up with a bunch of content ideas to keep our fans engaged. So a lot of the teams around the country doing the same thing with some of the memes that were being posted, or we did a fan bracket challenge of voting for your favorite the all-time Navy football team or whatever, what year you thought was the best team. We were putting out to help with our corporate side. We had a passport that we put out where you could go around to some of our local restaurant partners and you'd have a chance to win a prize. So there's a lot of different things that we were coming up with there. We were doing like phone wallpapers, desktop wallpapers, Zoom backgrounds. It was like every week we had 3 or 4 things on the docket to put out to our fans to keep them engaged. One, because we didn't have anything else to do, and we had the time to get that done. But I think it was great for us because we kind of I think got everybody in that mindset of like, even when this is over, let's continue to try to stay ahead of the curve and be unique and innovative and creative. I think that's so important. So that was really awesome to kind of get some people that maybe haven't been thinking that way in the past to start thinking that way. And then as far as planning for the season, it's definitely changed over the last 5 months, even from where we were in March to where we are now. Because initially it was, we think everything's just going to be normal in the fall. So like, hey, we'll just come up with all this content and we'll start gearing up for football. We can put more time into that right now, planning. And then it was like a couple months in, it's like, oh, well, actually, maybe we will only have a half full stadium. And so we were thinking about like, okay, how are we going to do the half full stadium thing, even talking operationally about how are people going to enter and exit? How can we showcase that we're keeping the stadium clean so fans believe it? Some of those, it's kind of weird, like some of those things that you would never want to show people. You never want to show them the behind the scenes of, the janitorial staff or whatever. But now it's like, hey, we need to show that we're keeping this as clean as possible. And this is a place that you can feel comfortable coming. And then over the last few months, now it's like, I will obviously with it not happening or happening or whatever, but now it's like, are we even going to have fans at all? So I would say over the last kind of 2 months, it's really turned into, instead of the focus being on that in-game experience in the actual venue itself, it's more, how can we bring that in-venue experience to our fans at home? Because people aren't going to be there to see warm-ups. We're probably not even going to have the brigade march in. We're probably not going to have that flyover. So how can we drive content for people watching at home? So that's kind of been a lot of the discussions so far. So one of the things I think I mentioned it was our we have a game day app, or I should say just a Navy Athletics app that now tickets completely digital this year, no paper tickets. So tickets are going to live on this app. So now it's like, now we need to come up with a content plan to get people to download this app. So not only will they have to have their tickets on it, but hey, maybe we can drive some more people to download it. So then when we can have more fans in the stands, now we have this built-in list where we can throw out push notifications. It's much easier to get tickets now. So in the future, like, hey, maybe in the winter time, we have 10,000 more people on this app. We can push them for tickets. And so a lot of the things we're talking about on there is like, some of the video board things that we do. We have a crab race every single game where each side of the stadium is rooting for a different crab to win on this animated video. So, hey, let's have them vote on Twitter and then we release it on the app and you can see who won. We're going to try to get footage of the team getting off the bus and the warm-ups happening. Again, stuff that people are used to seeing. They're not going to be able to see it, but let's still give it to them because we're still going to be there. I mean, some of the other things we've talked about, obviously, hopefully, if we can't have fans in or when we can have them again, there's a lot of services out there as far as like mobile concession ordering. There's some services that you can integrate in your app that people can pull up like a map of the stadium and they can find here's all of the concession stands or here's where all the bathrooms are located or with wait times at different places. I think it's great. Like, again, if we can have people at the stadium, we can be sending them a push notification. Hey, gates open in an hour. The team's arriving. Get over to this location. Or, hey, help us pick the timeout music for the timeout coming up soon, or different things like that, or merchandise specials, concession specials to help drive sales. So I think long term, we're thinking more kind of long term. Obviously, this season's going to be what it is, but if we can kind of build this into a thing and the whole world is kind of moving into a mobile direction, I think one of the stats, at least social media wise, is more than half people now are using their social media apps on their phone and not on their computer. So one of the more interesting things was maybe you're not making all of your videos, landscape because that's not optimized for mobile viewing. You should be making it, at a 4:5 aspect ratio or whatever, so people can see it easier on their phone because the majority of your fans are viewing it that way. So this might be kind of a turning point, at least from our perspective of maybe we're really driving everything mobilely. I think,
go ahead. Sorry, I just think it's really great the way you're thinking about it too, right? It's let's take advantage of it. This sucks. Like there's really no like very, very few positives are, you can look at this, but I mean, I've tried to take advantage of this time. It seems like you guys are trying to take advantage of this time as well. And just make sure that, yes, we're in a pandemic. Yes, it is super unfortunate. A lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people are dying. This just sucks. We're not going to have a lot of sports. And if we do, it's going to be weird. It's going to be wacky. We've seen what's happening with baseball. I'm surprised they're still playing.
Yeah.
We're going to rep my Mets and I'm still going to be depressed every night. So that is what it is. But it's just one of those things that like, at least you can find ways to take advantage of the situation. As you said, with more and more people going to mobile, it's like, hell, then we're going to go 100% into mobile. And I mean, I'm pretty sure the 50% of people that use it on their desktop is just my grandma. So you don't really have to worry about her. I think you're going to be fine. You already got her in the bag, but man, this has been awesome. Any other things that you guys are working on that end before we head out here?
I mean, it's just another stat that we saw was, I don't know if it was 90%. Facebook came out with this thing a few months ago called Facebook Venue. And the whole thing was like, everyone who's watching a sporting event, like 80 or 90% of them are on their phone while they're watching sports. Yeah. So this Facebook Venue app that NASCAR has been using, it was basically like, if they're going to be on their phones, let's make it on our platforms. So that's been another thing that's been kind of driving the app. Also, like, what can we do to make sure people are tuned into Navy athletics on social media? We want our platforms and our things to be the place that people go to. So that's been driving a lot of our decisions and discussions right now. And then the other piece of that being, how can we involve our corporate partners in all of this? So not only doing make goods from the spring, but obviously moving into the fall, we don't know, a lot of their stuff is driven by people being in the stands. So all this stuff digitally, we're trying to figure out how can we incorporate what a sponsor is looking to do with what we're trying to do as well. So a great example of that, again, instead of, obviously we're slapping logos on things as make goods, but instead of just slapping a logo on something, like for one of our examples was, we're thinking about doing a recipe cookbook. So our fans, we're kind of going to crowdsource a tailgate cookbook, and then have some of our partners give us some of their recipes. So like one of them has like these world famous crab cakes that they ship all over the country. So it's like, we'll have our fans, we'll crowdsource that, but then, here's how you make Boatyard's crab cake. And they're obviously getting exposure there. People can make it at home, but it's great exposure for them. And we kind of highlight, and it's getting both of those aspects. So again, it's not just like, here's a tailgate cookbook, boom, logo. They're incorporated in it, and it kind of makes sense. So that's been kind of another thing that we've been kind of drive. But like you, I mean, we really don't know what's going to happen. But again, like you said, we're just trying to make this as much of a positive as possible. And we're really ready for anything. It's just, at some point there has to be an ultimate decision, and I can't wait for that, so I can actually start executing some of these things.
Exactly.
So,
I'm sure you and your team, you're excited just to hear, whether it is or is not. I'm sure you then can, at least then you can start to move forward in a direction. Right now we're kind of in limbo. So we'll see what happens. Again, I'm really, really hoping we get college football, but there's so many different things that go into it. Obviously, from your perspective, as you said, the student, the athlete experience is huge at Navy, especially understanding that they get these 4 years, and if one of them gets taken away, they just get a year taken away. There's not much. So again, if we can do it in a healthy and a safe way, and understanding of what these athletes are going through and how they're going to do it, I'm all for it. But I don't think the leadership in the NCAA has really been able to figure out too much about that yet. So we'll cross our fingers, but we'll see what happens. But Kevin, this has been absolutely fantastic. Kevin Spillman, Director of Marketing and Promotions for the US Naval Academy. What are all the handles? What's the website? What are your handles? Give me all that stuff so people can go to
All right. Well, so navysports.com is our website, but you can find us at Navy Athletics on pretty much any platform, minus TikTok. Navy does not allow TikTok, so we are not on TikTok. But I'm too old for that.
Instagram took over TikTok anyway.
There you go. There you go. At 26, I'm too old for that anyway. So
you and me both.
And then I guess if you wanted to find me, I'm at Kevin Spillman 7 on Twitter. So I'll post some Navy things, some Red Sox takes, and I still support my Terps. So there you go.
God, I love it, man. Good stuff. Well, I'm going to have all those handles. I'm going to have the website and everything down. You're also going to give me a link to download that app too, just in case.
There you go.
I will. So we'll grab that. We'll get that down there. But Kevin, you've been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate everyone out there listening. Hope you learned something, and really appreciate your day, man. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
No problem. Go Navy, beat Army.